I've volunteered for, as I mentioned to you, the Friends of the Israeli Defense Force, because we have family friends who are very active on that organization. And from my experiences with that, they sort of have this sort of worldview where they view all those around them as a potential threat, even if they may be or not. And sort of, it allows them to sort of dehumanize them in their own minds and sort of justify their actions. So I think sort of the biggest thing that we could do to sort of combat this would simply be to introduce them to Palestinian people. Like, the more I think the world is exposed to these other cultures, these people who we say we hate, the more they begin to realize that they're really not so different from us. Everyone, I mean, sounds corny as shit, but like, everyone is the same on the inside. We're all humans, and we're all humans deserving of respect, deserving of the ability to grow old and have a life. So once you begin to understand that, once you're exposed to these different people, I think you can begin to deconstruct that narrative. And I think that's the strongest thing we could do to sort of break the hold of what you said is this sort of broken belief.
Yeah, and it is really kind of it's a message that it obviously does not get practiced enough in real life. That's for sure, especially not by these Israeli soldiers. And it's just like, it's so really tough to see that kind of mindset coming from, because Israel and obviously the Jewish people face a lot of discrimination, a lot of anti-Semitism, and have faced obviously a lot of persecution throughout their entire existence, and still do in some places, like anti-Semitism. We see anti-Semitic attacks on the right, here even in this country with the Church of Life the Tree of Life synagogue shooting last October, or 2 Octobers ago. But then you got people like Israeli soldiers, like with as I found the slogan now, 1 shot, 2 kills, which is what they called a shirt with a pregnant woman in the crosshairs that the IDF were wearing. And then another slogan, the smaller they are, the harder it is, saying another shirt with a child in rifle sight. And it's just like the kind of, it feels like it's almost target practice for them, and the lives are seemingly irrelevant. And I think we really need, it's going to be tough, but we really need just a de-escalation in this situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, all right, well, let's move on a little bit to some stuff back home, where an advocacy group composed of doctors and medical professionals on Wednesday joined the chorus denouncing President Donald Trump for threatening to slash Medicare and Social Security funding at some point, similar to the current, or at least I should say one of the front runners for the Democratic nomination, Joe Biden. Bernie's moving up pretty fast now, thank God. And this is, again, should he win a second term in November, talking again on CNBC, saying that Dr. Rob Davidson, a Michigan-based emergency physician and director of advocacy group Committee to Protect Medicare, said Trump's threat proves that he cannot be trusted and that he was never serious about making sure American families had quality health care, saying, quote, Donald Trump went out of his way to fashion himself the pro-Medicare Republican during his first run for office. And that's true. He was the guy who was like, we're never going to touch your entitlements. We're never going to touch your entitlements. Like, we're going to bring the jobs back. He ran as a populist, and he found that note. He hit that note more times than I think the media gives him credit for. And honestly, he's probably capable of doing it again and doing it pretty successfully, just because of the media, the control he has over the media that so many of his supporters watch. But it's something that needs to be called out, because he will come and do it again, especially if he gets a big mandate in a second term. It's very, very dangerous that he could do it again. Here's the quotes. He said in a CNBC interview Wednesday at the World Economic Forum in Davos, cutting safety net programs like Medicare and Social Security, which provide life-saving benefits to tens of millions of Americans, is actually the easiest of all things, saying, quote, "At some point they will be." The president said when asked if his administration's ever put Social Security and Medicare on the chopping block. In March 2020, Trump's 2020 budget proposal called for trillions of dollars in combined cuts to Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. So this shows you, and I think he's already released a tweet saying that, I was just joking. I'm going to protect Medicare no matter what. And it shows you that is such an incredibly unpopular thing. And it shows you the importance of, with Joe Biden's recent remarks, electing not just any Democrat, but a Democrat who's actually committed to this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you've probably already seen the ad that Bernie released, and I think that we definitely need to show that stark contrast, because what it is really a matter of priorities. Are you going to put more money, as Trump has, into endless wars and increasing the military budget by $81 billion on top of its already 53% of the federal discretionary budget that it had?
Yeah.
And whether you want to continue to cut taxes on the rich and on the corporations, rather than, again, providing for these incredibly popular and incredibly vital programs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, as you said, we do need a Democratic nominee who's going to fight for that, because that is one of the biggest contrasts you can put. You can say to those older voters who do make up the largest voting base, hey, you guys rely on this. I'm not going to take that away from you. It's your right. You paid into it. You deserve to take out of it. And that can't be said or emphasized enough. And I think it's really a smart move, especially from the Bernie campaign, to attack Biden's legacy on this, because when you look at it, 90% of African American seniors rely on Social Security. And it is one of the most critical issues for those in the over 65 age group. And that's the age group that Biden has the most popularity with. So I think the more they hammer that home, the more they can chip away at Biden, and the more we can work towards having a nominee who's actually going to fight for these ideals.
Yeah, and it's definitely such an important aspect of the campaign, and it really, I think, if you're a Democrat looking for some of this, if you're a Democrat, probably other than Joe Biden, because I don't know how smart Joe Biden would be attacking Trump on Social Security, but you should be playing this clip of Trump on CNBC saying that he's going to cut Medicare, Medicaid over and over and over and over and over and over again, ad nauseum, because it makes up, as you said, the largest voting base. So it's very important. I do want to take about 30 seconds here to play this ad that Bernie Sanders released in response to a Joe Biden ad saying that Bernie was lying for saying that Joe Biden was trying to cut Social Security. He were pretty much coming out and saying all the times, or just really a small fraction of the times, Joe Biden tried to cut Social Security. Take a listen to it.
When I argued that we should freeze federal spending, I meant Social Security as well. I meant Medicare and Medicaid. I meant veterans benefits. I meant every single solitary thing in the government. And I not only tried it once, I tried it twice, I tried it a third time, and I tried it a fourth time.
Well, we've got some bad news for them. We are not going to cut Social Security. We're going to expand.
Yeah, so that's the Bernie Sanders campaign ad there, and you really do love to see some of that stuff. It's such an important message, and it shows you the real truth about the matter is once you make an entitlement, it's very, very hard to take back, because entitlement programs work. You're entitled to them, you earn them, and you deserve to, in the case of at least Social Security, retire with dignity.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Social Security has been one of the only things stopping, sort of working towards a greater equality within society. It has sort of, in many ways, leveled the playing field between seniors and make sure that no senior will have to be working until the day they die. they can have that retirement and they can have that time to themselves rather than working themselves from cradle to grave. And as you said, I mean, you pay into this program. It is your right to take out of it. And it is that matter of priorities, whether you want to prioritize spending on Social Security, spending on welfare benefits that are actually going to help the American people, or whether we spend it on corporate tax breaks and militarization that's going to simply help those who are at the top 1%.
Yeah, and you just really get the sense that is, like, these entitlement programs, Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, they have been under attack. There's no doubt. There's been subversive ways they've been put under attack, especially in recent years with the Paul Ryan budget and all this kind of Koch brothers economics. The Republicans have been able to put in place for a bit, and it's like these three programs are kind of the three things really standing in the way of the further erosion of our society, because it's like these preserve the dignity of the working class, the poor, to the degree obviously that they can. And I think it's so important that Democratic nominees like Bernie Sanders need to run on expanding them, not cutting them, because of the things that they do, and make the world probably a little bit less of a hell world for seniors, for a working class, middle class, all that stuff. So I do want to move on, but I do want to give you the last word on this issue, if you have anything more to say.
I mean, not really. It's just 100%. It's what is really allowing. It's one of those programs that sort of saves people from having their entire lives being consumed by this despair. And only those who fight for continuing these programs and expanding them are going to have any success in the election.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to make sure that those, like, that the people who stand for Social Security and people who are against it make those divisions as clear as possible. Anyway, speaking of the erosion of our society, it's a little disturbing. The doomsday clock now stands at 100 seconds to midnight, the most dangerous situation humanity has ever faced. Now is the time to come together, to unite, and to act, says Mary Robinson, the chair of the Elders, which is a little scary, but it's a statement of in the statement of the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists on Thursday, announcing that the historic update to the clock is a decades-old symbol for potential global catastrophe, the doomsday clock. And, like, this is not run by, like, weirdos. Like, this is the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists, very well respected, and it's, like, very disturbing. Robinson's the former president of Ireland and the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, urged world leaders to join us in 2020 as we work to pull humanity back from the brink. After the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the Bulletin was founded at the University of Chicago scientists who had been involved with the Manhattan Project. 2 years later, the group introduced this doomsday clock set at 7 minutes to midnight. Midnight represented the potential apocalypse based on global nuclear dangers. The closer the hands are midnight, obviously the higher the threat. Since 1947, the clock's hands have moved both closer and further from midnight, reaching 17 minutes to midnight in 1991. In 2018, the hands hit 2 minutes to midnight, and for the first time since 1953, after the U.S. and Soviet Union tested thermonuclear weapons. Last year, the clock stayed there, and the Bulletin president, CEO Rachel Bronson, welcomed the world to the new abnormal. For more than a decade, the doomsday clock setting has reflected the threat posed by nuclear weaponry as well as the human-caused climate crisis. That's a pretty big thing, too. The 2020 statement explained that humanity continues to face simultaneous existential dangers, nuclear war, climate change, that are combated by a threat multiplier, which is cyber-enabled information warfare, undercutting society's ability to respond. Personally, the way things are right now, I mean, I'm not too worried about nuclear war, but boy, am I worried about climate change. So this is incredibly scary. This seems just, again, kind of a harbinger of the end times almost. So it's like we're not doing too well here.
Yeah, and I mean, it's, to me, how did we get here? How did we get to a position